Thank you all for coming. I wasn't planning that I would do the welcome, but I didn't ask anybody else. So I'm going to welcome you all. It's the fourth Sunday, and it's the service that I facilitate, and we'll be hearing about the discernment for the entire year a little bit later in the service here. It's wonderful to me that you would come, that we create this sacred space together, and that it's possible for us to find this avenue for expression of our deepest spirituality. And this is a structure for that, with a great deal of freedom and opportunity for everyone who's a part of the congregation. So thank you for joining me today. In our order of service, it is now time for calling in the ancestors. And I often have this done by others as well, but today I'm going to do this. When we're calling in the ancestors, not only are we thinking of our relatives and other human beings that have been on the planet before us and those who will come after us, but we're consciously bringing into our experience that we are eternal beings, that we existed before we became physical, and we will exist after. So when we're calling in our ancestors, we're thinking of eternity. And believe me, thinking of the cosmos helps one go there. So let's just reflect for a moment on these beautiful images we have had about the cosmos, and even reflect on the times when you used to gaze at the sky at night or during the day. And so just give yourself a moment to reflect. When I do that kind of reflection, I'm kind of floating. I don't know what happens to you, but we also like to honor our first peoples because we are on Coast Salish land here, and we want to acknowledge all of those who came before us who cared for this land. And we are now inheritors of this land, but the first peoples are still here and still active. And we are advocates for them being recognized. So I'm going to ask you to stand, and I'm going to have this prayer of gratitude for us to read. I think I'm going to go there. I thank you for allowing me to wake up this morning. I thank you for my breath. I thank you for my body. I thank you for my journey. I thank you for those who brought me into the world. I thank you that all basic necessities are met on a daily basis. Sunlight, water, the food on my table, the clothing on my back, my home, my mobility, my job. I thank you for my family. And think of your family. Name them in your consciousness. I thank you for my community. Think of your communities. I thank you for my spiritual companions. I thank you for my elders. And I thank you for whatever comes to you. O great Spirit, God of all people and every tribe, through whom all people are related, call on us to the kinship. Call us to the kinship of all your people. Grant us vision to see through the lens of justice the brokenness of the past. O Divine Mother, break the dawn and show the face of the light. Break the sun and show the face of the power. Break the night and show thy mooned face. Break my thoughts and show thy face of wisdom. Thank you. We also have an offering for the Divine Feminine, and we kind of did that at the end of that prayer of gratitude. But there happens to be a couple of prayers in your order of service, and I invite you to say these with me. So I'll start with the box on the left there. Let us adore our glorious Lady, she of many names and forms, Sophia, Maria, Magdalena, Kuan Yin, Kali, Isis, she who is represented by many images, while she is beyond all of them, she whose image we behold here, although she is all in all. Fill me with your beauty and grace, your silence and peace, your strength and courage, your understanding and acceptance, your openness and receptivity. Bless me with your ability to hold the light and give it expression in the world of form. Thank you. So I've asked for Michael to speak about the spiritual discernment for the year. We have individual focuses each month, and this month we're focusing on, we're still on educating the heart for this month. But I've asked Michael to speak about the spiritual discernment for the entire year. And before he speaks, I wanted to let you know that we have chosen a spiritual discernment for over 10 years of what we would focus on as a way of accomplishing our vision of interfaith worship. And through the years, we began, I think, with the Brahma Kumari's living values, and we also did, I'm forgetting the ecological one. Spiritual permaculture. We've also, I should really have it clear in my head what we did. We did the Hoops of Honor, Native American tradition. We did a year of Buddhist spirituality, engaged Buddhism, and we did a year drawing from the teachings of St. Francis, and more.
Yes, more.
And it's a little bit's on our website. Next time I'll come prepared to talk about this.
Thank you, but probably did better than anyone else in the room could have. So this year, our theme is transforming the body, heart, and mind. So we're focusing month by month on the body, the heart, the mind, the body, the heart, the mind. This month we're in the heart. And the whole year is broken down into 4 stages. And these are the 4 stages of the spiritual path. You could break the spiritual path or any process down into any number of stages you wanted to, really. Because, any journey is a journey from here to wherever you're going. And but if we're going from here to Chicago, we've got those big mountains right at the beginning. And and then we've got the Badlands, and it's a landscape, and there are markers on the journey. So it's possible to kind of abstract a schematic, a diagram, a map of the spiritual path from all the different traditions, because we are all human beings, and we come up with and when we traverse the same landscape, we come up with very similar maps. They may differ in a lot of details, but and each of us obviously has our own particular path. But there's generalities that we can kind of focus in on, and it helps to get the lay of the landscape. So the 4 stages of the spiritual path in Christianity, for instance, are, and now I'm not going to be able to remember what they're called in Christianity, now that I've brought it up. What's the first one? Rich? Okay, the first one is purification. The second one is illumination. The third is theosis, or union, or divinization. And the fourth is perfection. And what they basically are, if I wanted to say them really quickly, is the first stage is realizing where you're starting from and reorienting your life. This is a big one. This is confronting all your psychological issues, deciding to live in a way that is beyond your ego rather than constantly being concerned with satisfying yourself. So it's really stepping onto the path, but that's a major thing and requires a real reorientation of our lives, which can happen quickly or gradually over time. The second is really being on the path, walking the path, striving, living according to our ideals, heading towards our ideals. The third stage is actually getting somewhere. When all of our efforts bear fruit, when the trees we have planted bear fruit. This is a matter of grace, not really of effort. But as we all know, our efforts can change the probabilities. I frequently say it's like farming. Or gardening. You can plant seeds, you can prepare the ground. You're not the one who makes the plants grow. But there is work that we can do. It doesn't guarantee it that we're going to get somewhere, but if we don't do it, our chances are less. And the fourth stage is reintegrating that experience of union with the divine into the world. This is kind of the bodhisattva path. It's you don't achieve for yourself, you achieve so that you can serve better. And honestly, that is serving yourself, because we are all connected, and that's the only real way we make progress is through our collective service to each other. So the one thing I would like to say today, I'd like to, since we've transitioned from the first stage, the kind of beginning foundational stage, to the second stage, I'd like to talk about that in terms of, from the Islamic perspective. In the Islamic tradition, the first stage is called Shariat, and the second stage is called Tariqat. Shariat means a road, a way, a path. In the Arabic root. And it really means a big path, a wide path, like a highway or a trade route. It's a path that anybody can do. It's like you could represent it by the whole concept of exoteric religion, like just basic religion. Doesn't matter which one, but all of the major religions are designed in such a way that anyone can do it. There's no hurdle. Any human being can walk that path. It has nothing to do with your capacity. It's open to absolutely everybody. Just like a trade route. Everybody knows where it is. Everybody knows where it goes. You can kind of get on and just move along with everyone else. And it works. Tariqat, which is the second stage, what we're looking at now, also means a path or a way or a road, but it means a path that is not marked. If you imagine a path through the desert that people travel on, but there's no marker. You have to actually know that there's an oasis 5 miles this way. If you don't know, you might very well wander in the desert and not find it. So you need a guide. Now, you don't necessarily need one human guide as a teacher or a guru or whatever. Not that that doesn't work. That's worked for thousands and thousands of years. It's a great method. But what you really need is a relationship with guidance, because all guides are the same guide. All teachers are the same teacher. So what we really need to develop to follow that path that is like an unmarked path through the desert, is we need to have developed a relationship with guidance. We need to have developed our intuition and our discernment so that we can actually look in our hearts and say, is this the right way? And know whether it's the right way. Or at least know enough that we have the courage to move forward in some direction or other. So that's where we're at. That's really one of the main questions of the what we're calling the second stage of the spiritual path is, no, it's a path. It's going somewhere. You have to figure out a way in your life to know that you're going in the right direction. To know that that it's worth putting one foot in front of the other and continuing to move, and to have an ideal that is that we keep our eyes on and we move towards. Okay.
So I've also asked Michael to do a little bit of heartbeat drumming so we can deepen into the rest of the service. And reflecting on all these things, the path that we're on. And we'll talk more about that. Okay. So as we center on our heart and follow the heartbeat drum, the heartbeat of the drum, it allows us to be fully centered in our body, which allows us to be fully centered in our essence. One of the values in our community here is the understanding of the importance of contemplation, meditation, sitting in silence, and cultivating an openness of the heart, which allows us to have the experience of our heart ever learning, ever evolving, ever being educated by life. When it came up for this discernment this month in May, I was very much inspired by the understanding that we are eternal beings, and we bring into the world these new creatures, our children, and require so much of them, and that they too, as we are on a journey, and on a journey that is often depicted as the hero's journey, the heroine's journey. And the cycle of the heroine's journey is circular, where there's a beginning and there's these processes that one goes through. And then you think it's going to end, but it doesn't end, it continues. So everything is circular, everything is eternal, everything continues. And any movement, any intention, any spiritual vibration that you put into whatever you're doing carries forth. So there's these phases in our own life that I would like us to think about for a few minutes here, is let's remember our birth. Remember the first 5 years of our life. So take a moment to recall to your infancy, your time as a toddler, your growing self, and your body's changing, and you're learning language, and you're learning how to fit into your culture, your family culture, your societal culture. And everything is extraordinary. Everything is unique. Everything is the first time. So continue holding that consciousness of your openness at that time. And allow yourself to reflect on your ages from 5 to 10. And your body's continuing to change. Your world is continuing to make sense or not. You're beginning to find your way. You're getting footing on the ground and skills. You're developing skills. You're finding your natural talents. And also in the midst of that is this sense of hope and love and possibility and optimism. And then your body goes through great changes. So imagine yourself from 10 to like 15. And remember, at that stage, you're certainly thinking about becoming an adult. And there's responsibilities with that. And there continues to be hope and optimism. And by now you kind of know your talents, your skills. And those you don't have, you can make commitments to acquire acquire skills, acquire knowledge. And then as you move into adulthood, beyond 15, I think the impact of the world becomes very clear. Your responsibility is beyond your immediate circumstances, that it begins to encompass the entire world. And a sense of compassion and empathy can well up within you. And these are healthy. These are healthy things about the development of the human being and developing awareness and consciousness. And it comes back to our responsibility. What is our responsibility? What is my responsibility? And as you continue to move through your life, you have encounters with the world, and it's explained in the hero's journey. For example, you may leave what's familiar to you, and you may have adventures. And on the adventures, things go well or not. And you encounter obstacles. And you begin to become aware of what is your essence leading you and what is your ego leading you. Because we need our ego to exist in the world. So the beginning part of our lives, we're cultivating our ego, refining our personality. And then as we take these adventures, which is just life, we encounter the need to discover truth. And sometimes the truth we discover is painful, even harming, even frightening. But our essence desires the truth. And it's part of, we begin to realize what is the divine that makes us be. What is the divine light? And we begin to become conscious that we have a spark within us that is beyond us, a spark within us that pushes us forward. We can witness that in our own bodies. When we have a cut, it heals. We don't tell that cut to heal. It's happening. It's part of the benevolence of the entire universe. This love and support, compassion and empathy that is being flooded towards us at all times. We begin to realize this. So finding the truth, discovering that within yourself you have this value about knowing what is real, knowing the truth, becomes a quest. And we have many examples of that in our culture, of those who are inventors, people with visionary skills, which we have. One of the things that's happening throughout our life as we grow up is we realize we also have periods in our consciousness that happen in our sleep. And part of that is connecting to what is unseen, the spiritual realm. And as we grow in our consciousness and grow in our heart learning, we discover that there's value, and if we are receptive, we continue to receive the truth of the world. On our journey, there's a thing that also happens that's talked about, like in Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, where there's this encounter with the goddess. And I find that so lovely. And if we're thinking about our children going through their life too, we can witness how the children are going through these cycles that we in our maturity and our experience can recognize. But they're deep immersed in the deep end of the ocean with these experiences. And it's hard for them to separate like ego from essence. But we can be guiding here. So meeting the goddess for us in our lives, I realize it's meeting wisdom. So not only do we seek truth, we seek wisdom. And these are core, I'm finding that these are core impulses within us. And these core impulses of seeking the truth and seeking wisdom is the formula for healing the world and healing ourselves. So for today's service, I invited us to bring, to recall our childhood, recall our children, to recall those who are close to us, those who are further from us. But our heart, our open heart, our educated heart, has the capacity to infuse the world and to infuse the children and those in need. Not only the children can use our commitment to silence, contemplation, empathy, compassion, love, and truth and wisdom, but we can guide them through energetically, through valuing these things too. And it brings us back to what Michael talked about the discernment. There's a place where you must be active. You must do something. But there's almost more times that you need to be contemplating things and not taking action. So in the hero's journey, there's a explanation about how the hero has his encounter, her encounter, and they learn something from that, and they bring that knowledge back to the community. It's a return. It's part of that cycle where there's impulse to go forth, and there's a deepening that happens, and then there's a return, and the return is to service. Service of others we care about, service to our families, service certainly to our children, and service to the world. There are so many people in such dire conditions in our own neighborhood, in our city, country, and around the world, and we are confronted with the knowledge that, for example, there will not be enough food to feed the world. And then currently people are starving. When we can bring in our knowing the truth of that, when we can bring in our full intelligence of our heart and our mind to solve these issues, it becomes the foremost purpose of our life. There's also something that can make your ego can doubt you and say, don't bother, there's nothing you can do. But if we hold this intention to support all beings, and we ourselves are eternal, this continues not only during our lifetime here, but it continues beyond our life. So as we progress as human beings, there's an important thing that begins to happen too, that there becomes what's called the sacred marriage, the union of not only masculine and feminine, but the union of the physical matter with the spiritual world. The dimension that we see separate becomes, I was going to say invisible, but it becomes permeable. And you can be surprised that you can contemplate a situation, and before you know it, that the solution that comes to you as to how you can serve in this situation is something you've never, ever thought of, and it does not seem possible. On the office door here, I have a little sign that was attributed to St. Francis, which says, "Start by doing what's necessary, and then you find you are doing the impossible." It's that simple. It's this starting on the path. It's making the step and following it, like going with the flow of water. When water begins to flow off the mountains to the ocean, it doesn't stop. And it cycles back. So when you can experience yourself as a human being in a flow that has this beauty, love, at the basis of it, and our traditions teach us this, that we can focus on anything and let that flow come through us. It's about joining our essence. You know, in our community here, we did not always have live streaming. We often would just get together and have very deep conversations like this. And so I would be tempted to listen to what people brought for the altar. The idea was there was masculine and feminine, and there was children, and there was people in this world and people beyond this world. And I made some choices here to put on the altar. But sometimes this kind of conversation we have after the service. In the section in our program we call Sharing Our Hearts. But just for fun, I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the things I brought. And then later I hope that you'll share what you brought and your thoughts about this. But we have a statue here of St. Francis of Assisi, and we have the statue here of Kuan Yin, which was a gift to our community. And then we have some pictures here that were brought. I'll tell you some of the things that I have. For example, is a photo and a prayer of Yunus Emre, who is a person who, in the Sufi tradition, spoke about becoming attuned to the soul and being attuned to the beloved. So we're back to that idea about sacred marriage, about the spirit joining with the spirit. And in the Sufi language, that's the beloved. So, and that is our goal in some traditions. And the other goals are talking about the light within us, that there's an impulse within us to join our light with others. The light we came from, the light we're going to, and there's this impulse. One of the things about the creation of the universe that they talk about is how matter floating around, after the Big Bang, that it all clumped together. That the fact that we gather, the fact that we have a sacred space where we can deepen ourselves is just a natural experience of the cosmos. and every piece of matter, every energy field has this spiral quality of this gathering. So of the things we brought here, I also want to tell you that of the divine feminine, the divine masculine that I have here, I have a picture of Malcolm X. And Malcolm X reading to his children. It's a picture of that. And so there's many ways that, and I was thinking that that's probably not traditional, that an altar in a Sunday morning church would have Malcolm X on the altar. And I thought, to me, that was kind of charming, that this is the kind of community that we might do that with. I also have here a picture of David Heitmiller, which is a lovely member of our community here, in the section of the divine masculine. And I have a picture of Reverend Deborah here, which Chris so lovingly offered a talk about her a couple weeks ago. And I also have images of Peace Camp International here with the children from Peace Camp International sitting on our front steps. I also have Isu Rahman's a picture of her and her children that we just stumbled across not long ago because of the fine work that they have done also with serving the village in Bangladesh. So many more items can be here, and we'll probably talk about those a little later. But this is such an example of how I appreciate our community, that we would do stuff like this, I think it's so wonderful. And I appreciate you all being with this. So I have this reading, and it's in your... did you get that? Mm-hmm. Okay. It's the one by Azur Inayat Khan, and it kind of fulfills what I felt was what happens to us as we live our life. These things that we pray for, ask for, things we get and things we don't get, and how we adjust to that. And knowledge of this, the education of this kind of thing, is the kind of thing we want to convey to our children. So please read this. We'll read this as a call and response. If you have that everyone have that? I will read the first line, just I asked for strength. And if you would read the second line.
And God gave me difficulties to make me strong.
I asked for wisdom.
And God gave me problems to learn to solve.
I asked for prosperity.
And God gave me a brain and brawn to work.
I asked for courage.
And God gave me dangers to overcome.
I asked for love.
And God gave me people to help.
I asked for favors.
And God gave me opportunities.
And say these last two lines with me. I received nothing I wanted. I received everything I needed. So another thing that I tried to get Michael to do, and he wasn't willing, but he's usually so good at agreeing to things. So I'll ask you to help me. The words Kyrie eleison here, these words are God have mercy. And there's different tones for that, but I think if we can just do this in a contemplative, slow way, it evokes traditionally the presence of God in the room, the presence of God in our hearts. And so it's an ancient practice that we benefit from. So please join me. Kyrie Christe eleison, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison. So recently, Jamal and I were looking at working with the Sikh community again, which we've been trying to do. And I don't have this next one, the Gnostic prayer. And on there, they were talking about how they do this practice called seva, which is service. And one of their ways of doing that is they cook food, meals. And basically, there's a story behind that, which I believe we'll talk about another time, but they were saying, what else is there but to serve and to pray? That's all there is. So there's a lot of prayers in today's service, but what else is there to do? To praise and to serve. So I'm inviting you to share with me the Gnostic's prayer, and it's in your order of service, and just say this with me. Almighty God, whose footstool is the highest firmament, great ruler of heaven and all the powers therein, hear the prayers of thy servants who put their trust in thee. We pray thee supply our needs from day to day. Command thy heavenly host to comfort and succor us, that it may be to the glory and delight of man. Sorry, I can't read. Forgive us our transgressions as we forgive our brothers and sisters. Be present with us, strengthen and sustain us, for we are but instruments in thy hands. Let us not fall into temptation. Defend us from all danger and evil. Let thy mighty power ever guard and protect us. Thou great fount of knowledge and wisdom, instruct thy servants by thy holy presence. Guide us and support us now and ever, forevermore. Amen. So because, again, we are online, that we will close down after this final prayer here. And before we do, I want to invite anyone who is online, please donate to Interfaith Community Sanctuary. Please support us in continuing our good work here and our service, work of service. We are all volunteers here, and we are doing our part to create peace and to bring healing to the entire world. And we appreciate your support. So join me in this final prayer, and after which we will close down the live stream. O gentle, O kind, O blessed Sophia, thy children on earth call unto thee. We pray thee, our beloved Mother, cast forth thy net of woven starlight, filling it right across the ocean of the universe, to gather us home to the realms of light.